He was an innocent victim, killed by a hooded youth near a pub in Liverpool, just yards from his home. He was only 11 years old. The shocking news of Rhys Jones's murder made national headlines as the country faced the serious issue of escalating gun crime and gang violence. It was a crime that terrified every parent in the country. It was a crime that shook Britain. On the 22nd of August 2007, schoolboy Rhys Jones was walking home from football practice. He was shot dead by a teenage gunman on a bike.
My baby was only 11. He didn't deserve this.
The search for his killer was to become one of the biggest investigations Merseyside Police had ever seen.
Today we've dedicated a further 100 officers to actually investigating this murder.
Whilst the nation demanded justice for Rhys's family, a small group closed ranks around the murder.
If you're the killer and you're watching this, turn yourself in.
This is the story of the senseless killing of Rhys Jones, told from the inside through the eyewitness accounts of the family, friends, and detectives at the heart of the case. "11-year-old Rhys Jones lived on the Croxteth Park estate in Liverpool.
Croxteth Park estate, which is predominantly housing estate. There's something like 3,000 privately owned houses. And in the middle of the estate is the Fir Tree pub. And then very close by is the only block of shops on that estate, with a medical centre, school and a church nearby.
We've lived on that estate for 17 years. I've never felt unsafe. It's a lovely area that we live in.
Obviously seeing groups of kids knocking around, but you know, nothing more than what you do as a youngster yourself, you know.
It's a really lovely looking estate, you know, you drive on it and there's trees, there's woods, there's plenty of greenery, all the houses are nice. With it being private, everyone has a bit more pride in their homes and it's a lovely looking place.
I'd never had any worries about letting the boys go out and play. We've never had any trouble up there.
Although it's a massive estate, I would say it was quite close, really, because there's only a little block of shops, and obviously that's the centre point of the estate. I think most people know each other.
Rhys lived with his mother Mel, father Steve, and older brother Owen. It was a happy family life, where Rhys was thriving.
We were just like a normal family, you know. Steve works permanent nights. I had a little part-time job. The boys were both at school and both doing really well. Weekends were always a bit special because Steve was always off for a weekend and we always make sure we do things together as a family.
We gave him every encouragement to go out and, you know, be active and have a good time.
Rhys was a popular personality and adored by those close to him.
Rhys was a very happy and energetic little boy. He was also very funny and just a really outgoing little boy.
He's one of those lads that you couldn't be mad at for very long. And even if you were mad at him, he'd just make you laugh. He's just lovable and likeable.
Rhys was, he was cheeky little lad. He was always smiling, always laughing.
He was always playing tricks and he was dead mischievous. He'd always make mud balls and start throwing them at the kids, and then all the other kids would join in and I'd just be tearing my hair out like shouting at him, you know.
But Rhys's biggest passion was football.
I think the passion for football that he has took up all of his life. It was just football, football, football. Played for the Fir Tree for about 12 months. I think he played his first season. He was going into playing his second season for them.
He was a good footballer. You could see it from an early age. He could kick the ball further than other kids of his age, and you could see that there was something special about him.
It was a warm and sunny day on the 22nd of August 2007.
I'd been to work in the morning. I came home and Rhys was starting senior schools in September, so we decided to go to town and get him his new uniform.
I worked permanent nights, so I'd been in bed most of that day, and I got up round about tea time. Obviously I had my tea. Rhys, I knew, was going to go and train.
He'd go training once a week and he'd play a match of a weekend.
We decided that we would get together for an extra training session because the season was due to start on the following Sunday.
But he was more excited because England were playing that night as well. So there was quite a buzz going around in the house because he wanted to get back for the match. He just had a light snack and then he just went up and put his kit on.
Rhys left home and made his way to football.
Rhys always used to take himself to training. As you come out of our house, it'd be a 5-7 minute walk on one straight road straight up to the football pitches behind the shops.
The training ground would have been just to the right and slightly set back behind the pub. More or less right next to it, really.
Soon after arriving at football practice, Rhys realised he'd forgotten something.
The training session on that particular evening started about 6 o'clock. I'd asked all the kids to get there. Rhys had forgot his £5 signing on fee. And he went, "Oh, I forgot my money." And you could see him start to panic a little bit. And before I could even say anything off, he'd gone. He'd run home.
Rhys!
I was sitting on the settee watching the TV when he came bursting back through the door because he'd forgotten his sign-on money. And obviously he badgered Mel. And he just sat on the end of the couch waiting patiently for her to give him the money.
Instead of just leaving it and paying next time, he wouldn't. So I gave him his signing on fee, and because he was going to be late, I put him in the car and I drove him the couple of minutes up the road to the training field. He just kissed me on the cheek and said, "Ta-ra, Mum, I'll be home to watch England."
With his subs fully paid, Rhys finally joined his teammates.
We'd done a couple of little warm-up things, you know, we'd run round the field, then we'd do a couple of little stretching exercises. You know, there was just a couple of little exercises like that. And we never really spent much time doing that because I always thought it's better if kids are playing football rather than, you know, doing exercises.
After a successful training session, Rhys was ready to make his way home, looking forward to watching England play Germany that evening.
I was at the back of the car with the boot open, putting stuff in, and Rhys walked past the front of the car. And he said, "Ta-ra." And I said, "Where are you going? How are you getting home?" So he said, "It's all right, I'll walk." I asked Rhys to get in the car 2-3 times. And I even said to him, "No, come on, get in the car, I'll drop you off, it's no problem. Come on." Rhys was adamant he was walking.
Hey, Rhys!
It was a pleasant evening as Rhys made his way home, a journey he had made countless times before, but one that would be his last. "11-year-old schoolboy Rhys Jones was a popular and passionate footballer, adored by friends and family. He had a promising future ahead of him, a future he would be denied. Having turned down a lift from his football coach, Rhys Jones was making his way home on foot. He took his usual shortcut across the Fir Tree Pub car park, only 500 yards from his home.
The 22nd of August was a hot summer's evening. The pub was very busy.
On that particular evening, England were playing Germany. A lot of people who were sat outside because of the nice weather and also because of the smoking ban. And Rhys at that time had finished his football practice and was walking a relatively short distance home from the football field.
I jumped in my car and I drove probably 50 yards, and Sean was in the passenger seat and he screamed out Rhys's name. And I looked back, I've seen Rhys hit the floor, and I knew immediately he was hurt. The first thing that entered my head was he slipped. So I slammed the brakes on in the car and I jumped out. But by the time I'd done that, Sean had opened the door and jumped out. So he got to Rhys before I did. Just before I got there, a girl got there. She worked in the pub. This girl had grabbed hold of Rhys. She was trying to administer some sort of first aid. He was lying in like a pool, literally a pool of blood. The girl was shouting to me, he's been shot.
Call an ambulance!
It's just that bit, seeing him. Sean was hysterical. So I'm shouting to Sean, he'll be all right, but I just froze, I was numb, I couldn't have done anything at all. The first thing I done was get my phone out and I phoned the ambulance and the police. And all the time, Sean's running around hysterical, and I'm trying to say to Sean, he'll be okay, don't worry.
A distressed Steve didn't have Rhys's home number, so he frantically called local resident and Fir Tree football coach, Tony Edge.
I could hear the panic in his voice, and he said, Tony, I don't know what to do. Rhys has been shot.
I started to shout a little bit. Just get round there and get his mum and get her here now, immediately.
I remember just thinking, what am I going to say? What do you say to his mum or dad when they answer the door?
Shocked and panicked, Tony raced over to the Joneses' family home.
Well, I was just sitting on the settee watching the telly and there was a knock at the door. And I just opened the door and Tony was just standing there.
I said, Steve just rang me and he said Rhys has been shot, but I don't know how bad it is. That's all I know.
And he just went, you just need to come with me now. And I didn't even have time to think, I just ran into the living room, grabbed my keys and my phone, and I just got in the car.
Well, the distance from Rhys's house to the pub car park was about a minute in the car. We were just really in silence and we were just wanting to get there as soon as possible.
I think I was just in disbelief. I couldn't comprehend what he'd said. I didn't even question what he said. I don't even think I spoke.
A stunned crowd had already started to gather around Rhys.
It seemed like there was hundreds of people all around. I couldn't see anything at first. I got out the car and I just heard someone shout, "Here's his mum." And then as I heard that voice, all the people that were together just sort of stood apart and Rhys was just on the floor. And I just ran over. I could nearly even see where he was hurt. I could just see the pool. He was lying in a pool of blood. I just put my hand under his head and I said, "Come on, Rhys, you're going to be okay, come on. You're going to be okay, I'm here now. It's going to be fine." And people were screaming and, "Where's the ambulance?" But I was just, "Come on, Rhys, just look at me, you'll be all right."
Tony never went over to Rhys. He left Mel and Tony come over to me and I was sort of trying to explain to Tony what had happened.
When I saw Steve, he was distraught, he was in tears and, he's probably thinking if we hadn't have had training that night, it wouldn't have happened.
It felt like an eternity till the ambulance arrived. It just felt like an eternity. I was still there, still holding on to him. And then when the paramedics arrive and they're working on him, and I just wanted them to help Rhys. I just wanted them to save him.
I think I was on the M57 driving along when I got a call off Mel, and it was a very, very short call just saying that, "Steve, you need to come home. Rhys has been shot." And the first thing that went through my mind was that some kids had an air rifle or an air pistol and they, let off a pellet or something and it struck him and lodged him or whatever it was. I didn't for one instant think that it was a proper firearm that he'd been shot with.
Well, when we got to the hospital, everyone was there waiting for us. They're all working on them, and there's a whole team of people, and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be okay, they're going to... And they allowed me and Steve to go in, and we were rubbing his legs and took his boots off, and we were rubbing his feet, and they were telling us to talk to him, and while they were all working on him, and I'm thinking, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, because they know what they're doing, and they can see him, but they tried so hard, didn't they?
The doctors desperately persevered to save Rhys, but he never regained consciousness.
I think the hardest thing for us was leaving Rhys in the hospital. We didn't want to go home and leave him there.
You couldn't touch him. He wasn't yours anymore. He was a crime scene.
And we just went home in shock. We just went home and we were just sitting in Rhys's room and we just all started crying. We couldn't understand what's happened.
At 6 o'clock, the murder of an 11-year-old boy in Liverpool.
He was shot by another youth on a BMX outside the Fir Tree pub in Croxteth. Police.
He was shot in the neck last night in Croxteth on his way home from football practice. He died later in hospital. And the police say
knows who this killer is. This is not a time for silence. Do the right thing and turn them in.
As the shooting made headline news, across the country there was stunned disbelief. Merseyside Police quickly mobilised, determined to find the schoolboy's killer.
It's probably one of the largest murder investigations that Merseyside Police has run. The fact that he had no involvement and was an innocent victim in the middle of all this. The pressure was there to solve this offence and to bring the people or person responsible to justice. There's a large number of detectives who were deployed immediately onto it to conduct the outside inquiries. You've got the incident room itself, there's a lot of search teams involved, all the scientists, crime scene investigators.
In the early hours of the investigation, it was clear to the police that the shooting was gang-related.
The Croxteth Park estate itself is about less than a mile from the old Croxteth council estate. We were aware that there was gangs in mainly the old Croxteth estate.
You've got a situation in Liverpool 11 where, in effect, two close-knit geographical locations, which is Croxteth and Norris Green, are separated, in effect, by one road. And over the years, there has been a number of incidents involving almost like conflict between these two groups, which had escalated and had started to actually use guns.
We were aware of certain things that had gone on in the past, between Norris Green and Croxteth Crew and stuff like that, but we'd never been a part of it, we never witnessed any of it. We just never thought that it'd overspill onto, our estate.
The whole scenario of there being gangs on the estate and young boys having guns just seemed a world away from the life that we were living. I just couldn't comprehend it.
I just wanted to understand. I just wanted to know what had gone on, why someone could shoot an 11-year-old boy. Because I knew that Rhys didn't hang around with those type of people. All his mates were all just good lads.
The very next day, Rhys's parents conducted a press conference, pleading for witnesses.
Someone knows who's done it. And I know people must be frightened, but they've got to think that they can't leave this killer out there. It could be their son, it could be their brother next time, because it'll happen again. If he's not caught, it'll happen again.
As witnesses close to the scene came forward, they described a teenage boy riding a bike.
There were 3 shots fired in total by the gunman on the night. The first one was aimed at 2 lads who were riding their bikes across the pub car park. They then rode off on their bikes, and he's obviously tracked them, aiming at them again, and has fired a second time. That bullet struck Rhys, and then amazingly the gunman continued and fired a further shot. The third shot, still obviously tracking his intended target at that time, even though clearly Rhys had already fallen to the floor, having been struck.
There was eyewitnesses who told us they'd seen the gunman, but unfortunately none of those were able to identify him.
The police quickly obtained CCTV footage of the killer on his bike, hoping it would help their investigation.
The significant piece of CCTV footage that we had and was used in this case was that taken from the pub system itself. That showed the gunman obviously approaching from the rear and going to either side of the pub. At that stage, he's clearly looking for his intended victims. You see him come back across the rear of the pub, and he then comes out the other side, which is at the point where he stood astride his bike and fired his weapon 3 times.
When the gunman left the scene, we knew that he'd driven through the Croxteth Park estate on his bike. He'd crossed over Fir Tree Drive North and was narrowly missed by passing traffic, and across into Dam Wood, which is a wooded area that separates Croxteth Park and the old Croxteth estate.
Unfortunately, it wasn't that clear with regards to the face of the gunman. But what it did give us, which was quite crucial, was the actual dimensions of the bike.
As the killer made off with the gun, the pressure was now on the police to locate the gunman, bike, and the murder weapon.
It was important to identify the offender at an early stage. Obviously, there's a youth out there who's armed, could well use that gun again, or himself could become a target for retribution.
Rhys Jones was shot in the neck on his way back home from playing football in Croxteth, Liverpool. The gunman fled the scene with the murder weapon. His mother, Mel, raced to the scene where she cradled her dying son in her arms. Rhys Jones's death shocked a nation. The local community was struggling to make sense of the tragedy.
Everyone was just staying inside, that, you know, because people were frightened. People were frightened that it was going to happen again, you know, because, you know, if it could happen to Rhys, it could happen to absolutely anybody.
I think the circumstances of Rhys being shot and killed created an element of fear, and rightly so, within the community. People knew that we hadn't arrested the offender. You've got to put yourselves in the position of a parent living in that location and thinking that could have been my child.
You do have an instinct to keep your children safe, especially after something like that's happened. The streets around here were empty of kids.
People on the estate were obviously very protective of their young children. It certainly changed my view on where Sean could go and who he'd play with. I wouldn't let him go 2-3 streets away on his own. If he was going round to his friends, I'd drop him off there and I'd pick him up.
In the early stages of the murder investigation, the police already had a prime suspect. Postings on a social networking site had already named one boy as the alleged killer. 16-year-old Sean Mercer.
You did hear teenagers saying things, and obviously Mercer's name was all over the internet that night.
Mercer had a number of previous convictions, only a small amount for relatively minor crime. There was an ASBO in force against him at the time, but he was well known to the local police as being one of the youths who caused trouble, and he was related to the Croxteth crew.
Rhys was shot on the evening of Wednesday, the 22nd of August. By the Friday, what we had then was a number of pieces of information and intelligence that had come into us to suggest who the potential suspects were in this. By the Saturday, so you're talking 3 days after the murder of Rhys, a number of arrests were made on the morning. Sean Mercer was arrested on that day with a lad by the name of Dean Kelly, as was James Yates.
Mercer, because we thought he was the gunman, was put on an identification parade, and 5 witnesses who'd actually seen the gunman fire the gun across the car park were asked to attend that parade. None of them were able to identify Mercer as the gunman. When Mercer was initially interviewed, he gave a prepared statement through his solicitor, which said he'd been in the company of Dean Kelly, a friend of his, at the relevant time. He also said in that statement that the 2 bicycles we recovered from his house on the Saturday morning were the only bikes that he had. None of those 2 bikes matched the bike that we'd seen on the CCTV of the offender.
The Croxteth crew gang closed ranks around Sean Mercer. Even his mother, Jeanette Mercer, who was present at the police interview, vouched for her son. At this stage in the investigation, there simply wasn't enough evidence to categorically prove Mercer was the murderer.
We know that if these people are going to try and, cover the tracks and hide, we know it's going to be difficult. We know it's going to be a long, hard slog. We just thought, well, we're in for a long haul here.
There was an element of silence around the actual offender, but only carried out by the people who knew and assisted him at the relevant time.
With no actual eyewitness, no murder weapon, and no bike, Merseyside Police had no choice but to release Mercer and his accomplices back into the community.
It was frustrating letting Mercer go. Everything at that stage was pointing towards him being responsible for the murder of Rhys. And we knew at that stage that it was going to be quite a long and protracted inquiry.
The name of the offender is being mentioned in the community and was quite widely known.
We specifically asked that we didn't want to know any names from the onset, as that, because there was a lot of rumours going around. There was a lot of, the reasons why and how and stuff like that.
Personally, we didn't want to know. We knew there was names being bantered about, but we didn't want to know until that person was actually charged with Rhys's murder. We didn't want to know.
We had to get the evidence sufficient to charge and build an appropriate case to put before the Crown Court. We just can't put people away whilst we gather the evidence.
If you're the killer and you're watching this, turn yourself in. Similarly, if you know who is the gunman or who put the gun in his hand, do the right thing.
And I think if someone had walked into a police station and held their hand up and said, I'm the person responsible, or, I'm in connection with it, then, it makes things a lot easier, not only for the police, but obviously for us.
Thousands of mourners gathered at Liverpool's Anglican Cathedral for the funeral service of Rhys Jones. The murdered schoolboy was laid to rest. With emotions running high, the pressure was on Merseyside Police to find the gun and the missing bike, which would crucially link Sean Mercer to the murder of Rhys Jones. In a desperate bid to uncover the killer's movements, the police pressed on their intelligence to reveal more.
There was 2 calls made to Mercer before the murder of Rhys, and obviously what we would infer from that is that they were calls to say that the intended victim was in the area.
Police used Mercer's phone logs and CCTV footage to establish the sequence of events around the time of the murder.
He left on his bike just after 6 o'clock, and from there he went into the old Croxteth estate, where he was captured on a number of CCTV cameras riding his bike, and we believe he actually collected the gun that he used to kill Rhys from James Yates's girlfriend's house on Croxteth estate.
We established that the offender, having taken possession of the gun, he then went and carried out the shooting, obviously striking Rhys in that process.
Following the shooting, Mercer rode off to the home of a 15-year-old boy, referred to as Boy M.
We believe Mercer chose Boy M's house for a number of reasons. A, it was the closest of his associates to the Croxteth Park estate, so he could get there quickly and get off the streets as quick as possible. And also Boy M was only 15 years old at the time, and while not a member of the Croxteth crew, he had been involved in gang activity. He was young, he had behavioural problems himself, and Mercer knew he could tell Boy M what to do, and Boy M would do it.
It was from Boy M's house that Mercer hatched his plan.
Mercer made a series of telephone calls to his associates, and effectively he called his gang members in to assist him, and they helped by making plans to dispose of the gun, dispose of his clothing, douse him in petrol to get rid of any forensic evidence, and also to get rid of the bikes. It's a belief that petrol will dispose of any of the residue that's discharged from a firearm when you've been in close proximity to it being fired.
But which of the Croxteth crew gang members were involved? Melvin Coy, age 24.
He made a phone call to Mercer about 20 to 7, informing him of the people being present from the opposing group.
Gary Case, age 24.
He made a phone call to Sean Mercer just before 7:10 to alert him to the fact that members of the opposing group were in the area on the pub car park.
James Yates, age 19.
James Yates was an associate of Sean Mercer, and he had actually given the gun to Mercer on the night in question.
Nathan Quinn, age 16.
He attended at the friend's address with James Yates immediately in the aftermath of the shooting of Rhys.
Dean Kelly, age 16.
He's a friend of Mercer, who he was actually with at the time when Mercer was arrested. It was 3 days after the murder of Rhys. Dean Kelly, at that point, gave an alibi, in effect, for Sean Mercer.
On the night of the murder, Mercer, Yates and Quinn got into Melvin Coy's Ford Galaxy. They drove probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles to the Kirby Industrial Estate, where Melvin Coy had access to a lock-up, and it was there that Mercer's clothes were burned and Mercer was cleansed of any firearms residue using petrol. And as a result of examining CCTV, we were able to identify Melvin Coy's Ford Galaxy entering the estate. We did execute a search warrant there. The only things of significance that we found in that lockup were 3 empty petrol cans.
Having quite clearly established Sean Mercer's movements, the police needed to trace what had happened to the murder weapon.
As a result of intelligence that we'd received, a search warrant was executed at the home address of Boy X. In the loft, we recovered a Smith & Wesson revolver, a self-loading pistol and ammunition that fitted both of those guns.
The type of residue that was recovered by the forensic scientists from the gun matched the residue that was recovered from Rhys's football shirt that he was wearing at the time.
Boy X was arrested and interviewed.
He gave us an account that Mercer had phoned him, told him to come to Boy M's house went into the house and was confronted by Mercer, who gave him the package and told him to take it back and hide it. Our boy X was petrified. He felt intimidated by Mercer.
Mercer called boy X because he knew of him and knew him from the area, but boy X was not a member of the same group that Mercer was. Boy X took the gun to his home address and he left it in the back garden. And then on the Sunday, another associate of the main offender moved that gun into the loft of boy X's address.
With such a crucial statement, Merseyside Police took the unusual decision to file an application with the Crown Prosecution Service to offer boy X immunity.
The use of that legislation is very, very rare, and particularly where a youth is concerned. Witness testimony from boy X was a major part in the inquiry.
The evidence was slowly mounting against Mercer and his gang. As the police were waiting to hear back from the CPS, they still needed to track down a vital missing piece of the evidence that would bring Mercer to justice. In August 2007, schoolboy Rhys Jones was gunned down by a teenage killer riding a bike. Merseyside Police arrested and questioned various youths from Liverpool's notorious Croxteth crew gang, including prime suspect Sean Mercer. But despite having to release Mercer and his gang members as they carried out further investigation, the police were quickly converting intelligence into evidence. Having recovered the murder weapon, the police were now awaiting approval from the CPS to see whether boy X would be granted immunity if he testified against Mercer. But there was still the question of the missing bike.
The bike that Mercer had used, we knew had gone back to his home address later that evening from witness accounts. But from his home address, we didn't know where it had gone, and it remained outstanding.
The police launched a fresh appeal to help trace the bike.
Following our press appeal, a member of the public came forward and said that he'd been cycling himself in the Kirby area near to the industrial estate, and he'd found the bike frame minus its wheels and taken it back. Forensic examination of the bike revealed Mercer's DNA on the bike itself.
Mercer's mother, knowing that he had possession of that bike, she deliberately misled the police during the search by saying that bikes that we recovered at the offender's home address were the only bikes that he owned, and she repeated that fact during a later police interview. There's a huge difference between even believing that her son had done it and actually deliberately lying during police interviews, during the police search, and quite clearly trying to frustrate the police investigation.
We'd recovered the bike frame, we'd recovered the gun, and we had other witness accounts which basically blew Mercer's alibi away.
And the whole estate knows it.
All that remained was a decision from the Crown Prosecution Service on boy X. In April 2008, the CPS had made their decision.
When the Attorney General had made the decision that boy X was going to be offered immunity from prosecution, within days we re-interviewed boy X, obtained his witness account. He entered into the agreement with the Crown Prosecution Service that he would give truthful evidence in return for the immunity from prosecution.
On the 15th of April 2008, Merseyside Police arrested 14 people, including Sean Mercer, James Yates, Gary Kays, Melvin Coy, Dean Kelly, Nathan Quinn and boy M.
And they were subsequently charged, Mercer with the murder of Rhys and the others with assisting him to dispose of evidence. When Mercer was arrested on the 15th of April, he was interviewed again he produced a prepared statement in which he denied any involvement in the murder of Rhys and chose not to answer any further questions. Gary Kays and Melvin Coy basically denied being involved in assisting Mercer. The others, when they were interviewed, there was a mixture of people choosing not to answer questions, saying no comment.
As well as the Croxteth crew gang members, a number of adults were also arrested.
Because we knew Jeanette Mercer had lied to us when she'd made witness statements, saying that Sean Mercer had only had the 2 bikes we'd recovered from the house, and because she had possession of his mountain bike on the night of the murder, a decision was made to arrest her.
He said, at his house?
She denied any involvement.
Unless someone had taken him?
James Yates's parents, Francis and Marie Yates, were heavily involved in trying to assist Mercer and their own son. We know that Francis and Marie Yates burnt a SIM card that the police failed to find when they'd searched James Yates's house, and that was the SIM card that he'd been using at the time, and that was crucial evidence.
I think it was shocking, sort of like the help that they got, and it wasn't, so much as, Mercer and his mates that sort of like, took him away, whisked him away and doused him with the petrol, got rid of evidence, got rid of the bike and stuff like that. But it's the adults that were involved with it as well.
Almost 14 months after Rhys's murder, the trial took place at Liverpool Crown Court. Sean Mercer pleaded not guilty.
Throughout the trial, Mercer and his 6 associates were in the dock and frequently would be laughing and joking and not listening to what was going on.
And it was an 11-week trial, and it was a terrible ordeal for us to go through and to listen to, and you're scared to let your emotions out because you think if you do, you're never going to stop crying. You're never going to pull yourself together again.
I think it's fair to say that the behaviour of Sean Mercer and all those people in the dock with him at that time was poor, to say the least. This was all done in front of Rhys's mum and dad as well. I think that is unforgivable, but I also think it actually shows the type of people that we're dealing with here.
The jury found Mercer guilty of the murder of Rhys Jones. He was sentenced to 22 years in prison.
Mercer showed no remorse at all. Even when he was sentenced, very little emotion on his face.
He's destroyed us. He destroys our life.
In order to get your head around things, you need somebody to be charged. You need somebody to be found guilty. You've got to have a sentence that you feel reflects the enormity of what they've done.
We got justice for Rhys, because as the sentencing goes, Sean Mercer got the maximum what he could get. And in the eyes of the law, we've got justice. But I personally feel life should mean life. He should spend the rest of his life in jail.
These people should realise that, if they're going to go around firing guns and murdering people, then, they should spend the rest of their life in prison.
There does need to be change regarding guns and gangs. But as a parent, I don't know the answers to that. I think the police and the politicians need to sort that out.
I, like any other cop, is going to sit here and say to you that we would like it to be no incident of gun crime. But unfortunately, there are firearms out there. There are people who are prepared to use them.
Something needs to be done. It could start with tougher sentencing, give the judges the tools to do the job, get these people off the streets, get them to learn the lesson that, you know, if you're going to get caught with a gun, you're going to end up with a hefty sentence, and, you know, and make them serve that sentence.
But Rhys's death would not be in vain.
We've set a charity up in Rhys's name. It's the Rhys Jones Memorial Fund. The charity is to raise enough money to build a much-needed community centre in Croxteth Park, where we live. Somewhere for all the kids to go, keep them off the streets, keep them busy, give them an interest.
I work quite closely with Steve Gagan, which is, we do a soccer competition each year for the kids. Fair Tree take part, you know, the old lads that Rhys used to play football with, and it's a really, really good competition.
Rhys just lived for football. Everything evolved around football, and in terms of keeping Rhys's memory alive, then the most appropriate way to do it is through football.
I just remember Rhys as being a really bubbly, lovable lad. He'd just make you laugh.
I just remember Rhys smiling. He was always smiling, he was always laughing, always joking around. And he was always his most happiest when he was playing football.